Just waiting for it to share. All right. Hello again, world. Whoever's watching this or will watch this. I'm here again with Fabrice, and today we're going to go a little bit deeper into kind of this body of work that we're developing together, this body of work that we're calling evolutionary human design, which is a long body of work. This is stretched out over 3 20 plus week courses. So we're really putting together like a year and a half's worth of content here, spanning from individual to intimacy and relationship to organizational arrangements of how we view our individuality as from this lens of human design and gene keys, and how do we work together both romantically and intimately, and in organizations and vocations and communities and businesses. But we're starting really with our exploration, our first course, of our own unique identity. So there's 4 main pillars we're really drawing from in this work, and a couple of them are really explicit in the teaching, and some are more implicit or informing how this work is and what it's up to. And these pillars are human design, gene keys, integral theory, and evolutionary relating or authentic relating, relational skills. And so we're weaving these together into a course that has a purpose to both develop an individual in personal development and also provide the opportunity for professional development, to actually learning this language and how to utilize it in any way you might decide to do it, and probably in creative ways that we haven't even conceived of yet. That's what I'm excited for. So I'd love to turn it over to you for a little bit, Fabrice, and kind of you can speak about how this body of work weaves together human design and gene keys, and why it's important to bring them together, and what it's like if they're not together, and whatever else you'd like to share about this.
Yeah, I guess a little bit of context to start with, also of my journey through this, because I went through, first human design, and then I went to the gene keys, and then back to human design, and ended up just putting all of them together. And I was getting a bit turned off and I guess frustrated with the human design community, at least the traditional human design community. Most of them not even wanting to touch the gene keys. And if you do, please do not mix the systems. This is something completely separate, and so on and so on. And so really, only sticking to what Ra said. And first of all, finding out that when you dig a little bit, you can actually hear lectures of Ra recommending richer than the gene keys. So that's one thing. And the other thing also is, once you start really digging into both systems, you understand that they really, really go together. And on one hand, we have, the human design community being, from observations, like usually more like practically oriented, and usually very like mental people who love all of the knowledge of human design and all the practicality of human design. And then on the other hand, you have the gene keys.
We love maps.
Yes, and on the other side, you have the gene keys, where it's usually more like spiritually inclined people, the more like poetic, mystical vibe of the whole teachings. But then you go to their group calls, and there's nothing grounded whatsoever, and no practical advice either. So I was not fully satisfied on either side. And like, to be fair, they do work as systems, like as individual systems. They do work on their own. You do not need absolutely to mix both of them. But I've come to realize that they're really, and Richard Rudd, the founder of the Gene Keys, agrees with this. They're really 2 arms of the same transmission, 2 sides of the same coin. And on one hand, we have the left brain, more analytical, practical, technical and mechanical side of things with human design. Yes, and it's amazing because this is really where you get like clear-cut advice. This is how you do this and this and that, and you just follow it, and you just have your own experiments, and that's pretty much it. And then with the gene keys, we have more of the right brain, side of things. And that one is not so much about knowledge, but it's about wisdom. It's not so much about study, but it's about contemplation. Yes, it's just a slower, softer approach to the teachings, and it's hugely transformational. It's an amazing journey to go on. I'm like, my heart tends to be with the Gene Keys, because I feel the whole transmission very strongly. I love the language. Also, Richard being a poet himself, and it's just, the whole teachings are imbued with poetry and mysticism. And so, but again, it's only when I connect all of it together with integral human design that I'm fully satisfied. And I've noticed also, giving readings with this, using both the Gene Keys and human design. Same in the curriculum and in the courses that we're getting ready for a program, mixing the two. Yes, we're using the body graph, but we're using the Gene Keys language. Yeah, and that's also the next big piece. I love the practicality of the body graph, the centers, the gates, where they fit, how they connect as channels, all of that, which you don't find in the Gene Keys. But the language is limited. This whole transmission started with the Chinese I Ching, and the I Ching language is mostly talking about the shadow level of things. It's from back in those days. It was quite limited in its language. And then in human design, they pretty much took the same language and modernized a bit, but it's either like self or not self. It's just either that. Human design is a deeply dualistic system, which is going to meet some limitations eventually. And then the Gene Keys, with its language of shadow, gift, and siddhi, which is the transcendental aspect of that theme, the transcendental and mystical frequency of that specific theme, it brings this third dimension and it opens everything up. And it's giving us this idea that there is a sense of evolution. It's not about one profile being more evolved than another. Within every single profile, every single gate, center, type, authority, whatever you want to find, there is an evolution within that theme. Yeah. And that's where it starts connecting with principles from integral and so on. And I guess I'll let you continue here.
Well, I mean, I just back up what you say. I personally love the left brain mechanical side. Like, it took me a while to get into Gene Keys because I was so enamored with just another map. I'm a unconscious line 1 investigator, right? I love maps. I love understand, like, something that I can go, I can like study this map, learn it like a language, felt really exciting to me. And then especially when we get relationally and we start understanding the relational connections between channels, is like, it's so fun and so interesting to see the composite body graphs, and I've spoken about how I use this for work. I use this for dating. I use it to diagnose relational problems between couples. It's like, you can see it there in the body graph. It's remarkable. But then Gene Keys gives this like depth that's not, it's not left brain, it's not cognitive, it's not analytical. You can't look at it the same way, and so and it's slower. It's like human design, you can sit down and go, da, 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 here's the thing, da, 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 and you kind of like done. But Gene Keys is just like, you have to like chew on it and sip it and taste it. And like, at first it's like, I don't understand what this is. And it takes a while for it to like go in. And then it starts unlocking things. Like, I actually was just at the supermarket today, and I was like walking with the contemplation of my vocation, which is also my radiance. And it's like from control to authority. And I'm noticing stress creeping in around kind of the level of complexity and launches and not enough kind of income coming in at this particular moment. And stress is my life's work, stress to restraint. But I'm feeling this link to the control authority piece. And I'm like, authority, what's it like to be in my authority? And when I go into my authority, my stress relaxes. It's like, oh, here's this, my pearl sequence, linking my pearl sequence together and kind of feeling it as like a unit of frequency that makes up me. It's like this mystical experience, and it's like so anchored in the mundane. And so I'm really deeply enjoying this kind of seeing the two and weaving them together, and knowing I can jump between them. Like I feel like that kind of stretching out or three-dimensional object where I can jump between human design and look at a gate, you know, and actually look at I like also reading the definitions of the gates in human design, because they give a more structural understanding of what's occurring. They give a sense of like structurally, mechanically, here's what's happening at this gate. And then you take that same gate and go read about it in the gene keys, and it's like an explosion of here's what it's like at an internal unfolding inside of you. It's like, yeah. So
yeah, that's why, you know, my heart is with the gene keys, my mind is with human design, you know.
totally.
And I love both, and I love to swing between the two, because it happens, you know, when you're studying a lot, at some point, like, okay, like I've had enough of that thing, you know, and I need to take a break. And then you can just swing to the other side, and then, you know, go deeper in the gene keys, and then back to human design. And usually I get an insight on one side that gives me, you know, fuel and passion again to go back to the other side, and kind of keep on weaving this whole thing together. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Totally. And so then we're bringing in integral theory, but we're not teaching integral theory. We're not coming along to teach integral theory, although when you sign up, like for anyone who joins this course, part of the platform, there will be opportunities to immerse yourself in some integral theory learnings that are just going to be free and freely available, because I find it such a valuable underpinning to be informed about kind of the way that reality works and the way everything connects together. But really we're operating from an integrally informed perspective, which means that we're including a developmental perspective. So we're understanding that, like you were saying, Fabrice, is it's like, it's not just you learn your design and that's it. There's actually a developmental process whereby we actually grow, we become a more efficient being. And then what's that like to actually grow and develop and notice a transformation that's actually occurring inside of us. And so the gene keys kind of rides that with the shadow gift siddhi. And then there's also just a developmental process embedded in the nature of this kind of work, of being immersed in this work. And then the other aspect of integral that we're really operating from is one of the integral theory really looks at the 4 quadrants. For anyone who's informed of this, the 4 quadrants of reality, which is largely the pronouns I, it, we, its, looks at stages of development. Spiral dynamics is one of them for anyone who's ever looked into spiral dynamics, but there are other developmental models, even early psychological developmental models like Erik Erikson's work. It recognizes that we are in a developmental process. We are in a developmental unfolding. Robert Kegan's work, and so on. Then we look at lines of development, recognizing that we can develop through different capacities, and that, you know, we can develop ethically. We can also develop kinesthetically or cognitively or emotionally or somatically, you know, and these developmental processes occur differently depending on what we're doing. So when we teach, we're going to be teaching theoretical material, which will enhance cognitive development, but we're also going to be encouraging contemplation through the gene keys, which is going to enhance a different kind of development. It's going to enhance a kind of a contemplative internal awareness, like an intrapersonal development. So your self-reflective understanding. And then we also will be using a lot of relational activities and exercises. So we're enhancing relational intelligence as well, and we're developing there. So that we're actually understanding that we're going to be developing actively in multiple lines. Whether you understand or track those stages or anything is irrelevant. It's a process that's happening by participation. And then there's states, you know, when we start to go into different state experiences, we can go into like altered states and everything like that. And as we contemplate the gene keys, we might start to have glimmers of realized states and emerging into those states. No guarantees made there. And then and then typologies. So integral theory includes the understanding of typology, includes typology as a relevant and important aspect of what it is to be human. And typology is things like the Enneagram, Myers-Briggs. Masculine, feminine is a form of typology, right? It's a primary typology. Astrology. But now we also have human design and gene keys, which are very sophisticated typological models. And what's beautiful about typology is, as I've said elsewhere, is it's like it allows us to individuate it. It allows us to come into the contact with our own unique self, our own unique makeup, and learn that I can express that. And that's what I'm here to do. I'm not here to be someone else's design. I'm here to be my own design.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it all, you know. And I think we touched on this yesterday, but that's really where the magic happens, you know, starting with the own beauty of your own profile and seeing what you can do with that and how far you can go. And really, there's no end to this thing.
Yeah, totally. And then the last pillar we have in here is really my work. And so I approached Fabrice. I approached Fabrice firstly to get mentored. I knew that I wanted to go deeper in human design, and I had kind of been referred to him by someone else, or someone else had mentioned him. And as a line 4, that's probably the way that most people hear about him, is through word of mouth. And I reached out to him. You want to tell us can we tell the story briefly of the day that I reached out to you?
Yeah, go ahead. Do
you want to share your experience?
Start, because I think I'm missing some pieces from what I remember. So start, and then it's going to start clicking for me as well.
Well, I reached out to you and I said, hey, and it's the first time I'd ever spoken to you. And I was like, hey, I'm interested in getting some mentoring. And then you were like, this is really interesting. I had a dream last night that someone important was going to reach out to me today. And you mentioned that you were just kind of waiting for it.
I don't know if it, I don't know if it was a dream, or I think maybe that day, I think I pulled a card. It was, oh yeah, it was, that's right. I was meditating, and then somehow towards the end of it, there was like a clear message, like, you know, someone important is coming to you, you know, and it was just so like, yep, that's happening. Yeah.
So I reached out to Fabrice and I was like, I want to get some mentoring. I'm really interested in going deeper. And as we started exploring together, I enjoy the way you teach. I enjoy your depth of knowledge. I enjoy how easy it feels to kind of relate and work with you. And I always knew that I wanted to like have teachings on human design. I wanted to include that and work with the authentic relating work, because I find in authentic relating, people naturally individuate already. When we start relating authentically to each other, we start individuating. And I've seen this time and time again. People who go into the authentic relating work and stay in for a while, they become more uniquely themselves. They become, to my experience, they become a little bit brighter, a little bit more colorful, a little bit more vivid. It's like they learn, oh, I can just be myself. I don't have to be someone else. And then I always knew that like if we started to add this with a map of understanding, that we could enhance this capacity, and we could also start to understand and appreciate and love each other's differences too. So I always knew that I was going to couple these works together. And so I reached out to Fabrice and said, you know, after we've been working together a month or two, I was like, hey, do you want to create something together? And he was pretty quickly a yes. I mean, you had to ride your emotional wave about it. But I think it wasn't far off. And then so I always knew that I wanted to couple this work. So the work has a relational component to it. It's not just, I'm going to now learn about my design and go off and read about it and do it myself. It's like, actually, we're going to learn about it together in a community. We're going to learn about it relationally. We're going to learn, how do manifestors and projectors relate to each other? How do projectors and generators, how do manifestors and generators? We're going to see how we're relating with each other. We're going to see, how do the different authorities experience reality? How do we experience reality through different centers? What are our channels like? What are those experiences like? So we're going to be actively engaged in relationship with others, learning while we're also learning about other types. So we start to really value the differences and start to see and recognize and work with those differences between us, I think, in an increasingly synergistic way. And then at the same time, we're going to move towards gene keys and collective contemplation. How do we contemplate gene keys together? Even though then we may be in a group where someone is speaking about a key that I don't have in my design, that doesn't mean those frequencies aren't part of us. they are a part of humanity and they are all relevant. There's just different levels of relevancy. And I'm really excited to organize them by lines as well, so that we're kind of with people who have a similar resonant line experience, but contemplating our own individual keys, but together, and really learning and nourishing and enriching each other's experience. So this relational component is really this integration between gene keys and human design with a relational component is what makes our course really unique, like a position that probably I don't think is anywhere else out there.
And this is what's so exciting, because the deeper I went into this, and then when I started teaching and so on, sure, I'm happy to train people who can give readings and so on, but I really wanted to start mixing up this work with other lines of work. Yeah. So I wanted to more and more to train like other teachers, other coaches, so that they can start integrating human design and the gene keys in their own work. And that's really where it gets exciting. Because we really have to always remember that none of this stuff is fixed and will stay the same forever. It's a piece of, it's a transmission, which is really like just a living wisdom. And Richard talks about this a lot. It's a transmission that helps us transform, and in return, we help it transform. It wants to evolve, it wants to grow, it wants to mutate, it wants to play in different fields. And I was mentioning in the beginning of the call my frustration with a lot of the human design community, where you cannot play with it, and it's not a transmission, it's just fixed knowledge. And I'm not saying to just start mixing up types and just come up with any bullshit, but nonetheless, the real magic happens when you realize that it's a living transmission and that you can tap into it. You can tap into the source of that transmission, and then it starts really giving you new insights. And then you can be one of those, well, Richard or Ralph, for example, are clear like lineage holders in their own rights, but then who's next in a way, and it's all of us. We can all participate. Yeah. And as we start really connecting with the heart of the transmission, then it starts, first of all, we see the personal transformation happening on a much deeper level. And then it's not just about, mental understanding of things. It goes much deeper than that. It's an embodiment of it. And again, in return, and through us and our own life experiences and insights and experiments, like we're doing now with, mixing this work together. And by the way, those two things go very well together anyways. Both human design and the gene keys are deeply relational. Yeah. And they're not meant to replace, because it's true, those putting human design and gene keys together, it can help you to wake up, to clean up, to grow up, to show up, all of, now bringing some words from Integral. But it's not to say that it's here to replace other modalities of shadow work. It's not here to replace therapy. It's not here to replace the work that you're doing. It's not here to replace like any of the other things. I think it's just, when I found those systems, I was like, wow, this can really be the foundation of a meta system where everything else gets to fit into it. And right now, the relational work is one of those pieces, but it's just that we start with this foundation, with this map, and then everything else can fit into that. And that's why, we're talking about it yesterday in the call, when you have a call with a couple and they're having an issue, well, starting with that map and making it non-personal in a way, it's like, hey, this is just one of the themes of life, and it just happens that it's highlighted in your profile. Let's work with that. And then you can bring in all the tools, that you have learned in other places.
Yeah. To narrow in, use it as a diagnostic. And then just to carry on from that, I get really excited about also, like, it's not just about let's become a human design reader. I start to have fantasies around like HR recruitment, using human design in their recruitment, and not for an exclusivity purpose, but for like helping put people in the position that they're going to thrive the most in. And then everyone's going to win. or managers who are forming teams, project managers who are working with teams, understanding the right relationship between team members and putting them in those positions so they work really well. I mean, my team that I work with is operated based around human design principles, and it works very well. I hire people based on that, and it works very, very well. I think about therapy, and then you having more personalized therapeutic intervention based on some things that are very key. You know, we recognize that, hey, like the challenges that a manifestor is going to face in their mental health is going to be different than a generator and different than a projector, and they're going to have different themes they're going to work on, you know, and they're going to need to work on. We can bring in gene keys and the work of the shadow in therapeutic interventions. It's like there's a lot of scope for use here, and like I said, there's scope for creative uses that I haven't even thought of yet, you know. And
Yeah.
I get excited about that, you know. And in the bigger work, we're kind of starting here with some certificates, but we're expanding towards advanced certificates and diplomas in this education. And my desire is to create a university, and I want to be able to support research and actually support pushing the envelope a little bit further, and actually doing, you know, different forms of intersubjective and even qualitative forms of research on aspects of this and how valid is it, you know. And so we have this opportunity to play in kind of a cutting edge, leading edge potential here.
Yeah, and I think it's important to emphasize that this program has never been done before in this shape or form by anybody else. First of all, finding a program which is bridging human design and gene keys together or even online courses is, I'm not even sure if any exist at this point, maybe a few, but I haven't heard of any like live programs in this way. And especially bridging with your work. So even if you have done human design courses, even if you have done gene keys retreats or courses, even if you had readings, all of that, this is going to be a different and new experience. And even for us, you know, it's the first time going through it. So I'm even like excited and curious to see how it all unfolds.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I'm probably going to have to play in one of the gene keys pods. I'm not going to be able to let myself out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Awesome. Thanks, Fabrice.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Looking forward to diving in right alongside you as we embark on this educational and transformational journey.